Hello, friends. My name is Carlos Cabrera Jr., and I am the host of the Gray Podcast. Welcome to episode 11. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about what happened these last couple weeks. Where is episode 10? And a very special announcement at the end of the episode. So, without any further ado, buckle your seatbelts. Let's get it started. And cue that intro music. Welcome back to The Gray. The Gray is back for episode 11. That is right, friends. Episode 11, not 10. I know what you're thinking. Where is episode 10? I'm looking and I see episode 9 and then episode 11. 10 is nowhere. I'm going to get into that on the episodes and what's going to happen and the episode with Jess Cabrera, who's supposed to be episode 10. I'm going to jump into everything, but first I just want to say hi. It's felt like a while, but we're back, and we have a jam-packed episode today with different stories, things that have been going on these last 2 weeks, um, and an idea that I have, but more importantly, it's more of a special announcement. So you're going to want to wait until the end of the episode. Stay tuned to the end of the episode because we do have a special announcement and it is a sincere one. So, um, without any further ado, let's continue jumping into this episode. And first topic I want to talk about today is what happened. Episode 10 will be coming out, and that episode is still going to be coming. It's still going to happen. The interview with Jess Cabrera is still planned. It's still ongoing. We had a couple issues. One being that I and the rest of my family came down with the stomach bug that completely wiped us out for a couple days. My son got it first, and he actually got it the day that Jess and I were going to do the interview, which it was almost a blessing in disguise because her interview, I wanted to make it um, big in the sense of having a good conversation one on one, asking those questions, talking about her milestone of hitting 1,000 points, things like that in high school, playing basketball, and also some stories that we could share together about our childhood growing up underneath the same roof, things like that. My son got sick. It was he was losing control all over the place. So we ended up postponing that and we were going to do it Wednesday, and guess what? Wednesday, Adriana and myself both end up getting sick. And worse than that, of course, when we get sick and we're feeling so disgusting, so terrible, all of a sudden Grayson gets hit with it like for the second round that same day, Wednesday. So now all three of us had it on Wednesday. It was the worst day ever. And if you're a parent at home, you know the struggle of your child being sick and like you dread yourself being sick because you can't just stop parenting. You can't just say, all right, we're going to pause right here. You're going to go to your room. You're going to do your thing and I'm going to sleep. Not until they at least get older. And, he needed us. He still needed his mom and dad. So we still played our roles, but we struggled every step of the way throughout it. But we made it through, and um, Adriana is like God sent with the powers that she has to still be an amazing mother because I completely go into shutdown almost. Like, I am your typical, I get a cold and I'm dying. Like, that is it. That is game over. Like, she even looked at me at this point, though, and I think she did realize I really didn't feel good. And she said that she thinks that I got it that her mom and myself got it the worst out of everyone, but um, she looked at me and she said, "Wow, you look like you're dying." And I looked at her and I said, "I am," because I felt like it. I literally felt like this was it. Which every time I get a little sick, I think that this is it. Um, but we are all healthy now. We are all good now. Um, thank the man up above because uh, I don't think that I could go through that another time, at least anytime soon. Um, but that is why episode 10 got postponed. Um, and then when we had the chance to do the episode, I continued to press that pause button. Instead of us just, for one, we're not able to just meet up in a room. So she's not able to come to the studio because she does live further away. So it is tough for us to do this interview in person. So we were going to resort to doing it through Zoom or however on video. And I want to try to stray away from that if possible because I believe that a good conversation, the questions that I want to ask, I'm the interviewer and I really want to dig deep and ask those tough questions or even those questions that I can connect with the interviewee or the person that's answering the questions, things like that. So, um, trying to stray from the whole video interview. And her and I have been discussing, we're in the talks of doing something big, something very special for our episode. So please stay tuned for that because that is coming. We also have a huge announcement of another guest that's going to be on the episode on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. You'll see that be news. It's going to be a special alert on Instagram. So make sure you tune in the next couple days because we're going to be announcing our next guest on the Gray podcast after Jess. And it might happen before Jess because her and I are still in the works of making that episode big. So we don't want to rush it. And that's kind of where I'm at. That I've been on this timeline, this timetable. When I started the Gray podcast, I wanted these episodes every Thursday, every Thursday, every Thursday. And I'm going to get into this later on in today's episode, but I'm starting to realize that this whole timeline of what I have is almost unrealistic. I am doing these episodes with just me talking to you, talking to the camera, and after a while, having those conversations or topics to talk about, there's stories that happen every single day, but are they worth talking about and getting good content out of? And sometimes they're not. So we'll touch on that a little bit later on in today's episode. But I do want to rewind back to when I was sick last week. Um, it hit me in that moment. It hit me that life sucks. No, it hit me that I don't know how single parents do it with a sick child. I, I, I mean, Adriana and I work together tirelessly so that we can make sure that Grayson has a as fantastic of a childhood as he can have. And that's not me saying that single parents don't provide that for their children. I'm just saying, on a different side of it, I don't, I can't imagine doing it by myself or Adriana doing it by herself, to where we rely on one another. So I want to give huge props to you single parents out there because those who have children who, when you're sick and they're sick, but you don't have anyone else, it's just the baby, just yourself. however you want to look at it, that comes with crazy amount of strength, crazy amount of courage, and crazy amount of fortitude. So I want to just say to you, heck, disgusting. I want to just say to you, um, bravo, and you deserve a pat on the back, because like I said, felt like I was dying, and in my moments of need, Adriana stood up and she took care of him. And before it really hit me hard, I looked at her and I said, "Hey, why don't you lay down, start getting some rest? I'll take care of nap time. I'll do it all because I wanted to try to take that off her shoulders." Little did I know that it didn't last that long because I immediately went down and was out for the count. Um, anyway, moving on into this episode. This week, we do not have a new TWS. Mainly because we're going to be announcing something pretty big to the Gray podcast that is a little bit different. And going forward, that is going to kind of shake things up just a little bit. Not terribly much, hopefully, but we'll touch on that. So, no TWS this week. I do want to talk about a movie I did see, though, called The Batman. It came out on HBO Max to stream. If you have a subscription, it's now available to stream on HBO Max. So I watched this movie, The Batman. And The Batman, if you don't know who Batman is, things like that, most people do, but if you don't know who Batman is, that whole voice years ago, when The Dark Knight came out, things like that, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, the voice was made so popular of I'm Batman, I'm Batman, right? That whole like I am Batman. That's like that voice. And in this new movie, it kind of carries over to where that voice is still kind of there a little bit. And it, what if we use that voice on a daily basis? Like, what I was thinking to myself, what if I use that voice for just everyday situations? My mom calls me. Hello, Mom. I'm Carlos. What are you calling me for? I don't know how this is going to sound on the microphone. You might just be like, yo, screw this guy and turn it off because it might sound crazy. But what if I was just like, oh, you want to have dinner Saturday night? I have to check my plans. Like, it sounds obnoxious. It sounds crazy. But what if? What if that was the voice that I used on everyday situations? Going to the bank. I have a check to deposit. What would be on the mind of that bank teller? Would she be scared? Would she? I have a check to deposit. Like, I know I'm overplaying this. And I should definitely. But what if I had a phone call with the doctor? Hello, doctor. I have this itch on my ass and it won't go away. Like, I I know. I know. The whole point I'm trying to make here is Batman. No, that how ridiculous, but how fantastic of a voice that is. I mean, I know Batman is a superhero, but come on now, that's a pretty badass kind of voice that he has there that has been developed and like I wish I could use on an everyday situation. I really do. I I would use it almost everywhere, but I don't want to get the police called on me in every situation. So I'm a hand talker, remember? Watch these hands. They got a lot of movement. Watch these hands. They got a lot of movement. This episode is going this way because I'm getting ready to talk about something a little serious and I don't want to. So I gotta kind of move it out a little bit, get a little tension free. But anyway, we're going to be jumping into the announcement that I have, and that is that the Gray Podcast is coming to an end. No, that's not true. The Gray Podcast is changing, though, a little bit. And friends, I'm going to admit it. Episode 9, excuse my language, was a shit episode. It wasn't good. It was not good. I realized that. It was 15 minutes long. Listen, I came down into my basement / studio. Okay, we have a little bit of a break there because my cat knocked over my mixer. Damn cats. But anyway, episode 9, I can't talk. I came into my basement / studio to do the episode like usual. First off, I did it on a Wednesday, which is really cutting it close, which again, I'm doing it on a Wednesday night. But really is cutting it close to that whole deadline of getting these episodes out every Thursday. And when I came down, first off, I was drained. I was so tired. I was tired from work. I was tired, like stressed out in the sense of like doing, my plate was too full. And doing the things that I was doing, whether it's the podcast, whether it's work, whether it's family, was just running me down. Plus, there was Easter, there was all this stuff. And I couldn't give good content. And out of all the takes I did, and I know I said before, I want the Gray Podcast to be as real as possible. Honestly, I had to edit, I had to cut, I had to retake because one, I looked dead in that episode. Two, I had no content outside of the TWS, which that part, the TWS, I am proud of. I am happy with that. I do wish that I dedicated a better episode to Bellaby Bags, so I do want to apologize to them, and I do also want to say that I'm going to hopefully make them a TWS in the future because they deserve that for sure. Because episode 9, I used it as a prelude to the Jessica conversation, I'm going to call it, to episode 10, and it's not that I didn't have anything to talk about with her, is that I couldn't think of anything because of how tired I was, how just dead I was, and drained. So I also want to apologize to Jess. I want to apologize to, most importantly, you, the listener, you, the viewer, because that wasn't good content. That was just me looking at it saying, I have to get an episode out. So here we go. Here's the episode. All I had was 15 minutes I could work with. Out of like 45 minutes of shooting, all I had was 15 minutes that I could actually work with. So episode 9 was not what I ever dreamt of. It wasn't a good episode, at least from my standards whatsoever. But it did open my eyes to the fact that when I first decided that I wanted to create a podcast, I did it with the intent to, one, yes, have good content and to provide good stories, things like that. But more importantly, to find the gray stories, to find the truth, and to have those conversations. 9, 10 episodes in now, you have had mainly conversations with just myself. And the Gray podcast is so much bigger than just me. It's the whole purpose of this was, yes, I wanted you to see who I was. Who am I, your host? Who is Carlos Cabrera? Who are you listening or watching every week or so? So yes, I did have to give you a good backstory, but now we're kind of at that point where, one, yeah, I'll have stories here and there. But I'm, like I said before, I am doing this podcast thing where I'm in the studio talking directly to you. I'm not having side by side conversations. I don't have a co-host. I'm not able to rely on someone else to carry the episode if I'm just not in it. Which I did see this somewhere on a different podcast I was listening to called Impulsive, where they were talking about it is so hard to do a podcast solo. It is so hard because you run into those lulls. You run into episodes or situations where you don't have a lot to talk about. And especially with the kind of podcast that this is, where we talk about stories, we talk about life, we talk about gray stories, situations, news, things like that. But we're not solely focused on today news or history or sports or whatever it may be. We're not focused on that. We're focused on the stories that happen in life that maybe you can relate to. And because of that, sometimes in life, stories don't always happen. Things happen, but there's not a great story to tell out of it. There's very few situations that you go through that, one, you can remember what you need to say to tell in a good in-depth story, but two, we are focused on our lives. We're focused on what's going on in the moment. So to tell these stories, you kind of have to stop that and look in the past. You have to continue the search and create those stories when you can. And that's where I started to find that it was becoming more of an issue, more of a headache to produce content because the episode is due on Thursday. So that is why, with this announcement, the special announcement is that the Gray Podcast will be producing new episodes, but not every Thursday. And I apologize if you listen every Thursday and you look forward to them. And listen, if we can get an episode out that is good, if there is good content to give, I will give it. If it's just myself, I will give it. But the goal here is to produce stories, gray stories, and have interesting interviews with people. So the goal of the Gray Podcast moving forward is not just sitting in front of a camera and talking about whatever I can just to make an episode. I want to talk about something I want to talk about something in an episode that makes the story come to life. So whether that is something interesting that's going on, we'll be down here again, or having those conversations with other people, which that's going to be so important. That's what I'm looking most forward to. So, with that said, the Gray Podcast will not be coming out every Thursday. It will be coming out every good story. Um, how do you prepare for that? How does that happen? Things like that. Guess what? There might be 2 episodes in 1 week. There might be uh, one episode every other week. There might be one episode every week. Who knows? The goal is to have conversations. So I am moving forward to get people lined up, to have interviews, to sit down with people. We have Jess coming up. She's going to be hopefully within the next couple weeks. We have a very special guest that I'm going to be announcing on the Gray Podcast Instagram page. We have other guests that we have lined up. We have the season finale that's lined up. So we do have episodes coming up. It's making them as great as they deserve to be. So, with that said, if you are someone that would love to sit down and have a conversation, reach out to my Instagram or reach out to the gray.podcast on Instagram. Send us a message, send me a message, and we can talk about possibly getting you on the Gray Podcast. So, I just want to thank each and every one of you for all your love, for all your support. Listen, when I created this, I created it because I needed to talk. I needed to have conversations. I needed to vent. And I realized that if I had to, that there had to be other people, that there had to be stories that people had to talk about. And I've gotten so much great feedback from so many of you. It's already gotten a sponsor, and I know that maybe episodes not coming out every other week or every week may lose that sponsor. It is what it is at this point, because listen, I appreciate the sponsors. I appreciate everything, but if I'm not giving good content, I'm not doing this for the money. So I'm not going to put it out there because it needs to have. It needs to be more. It needs to be more. And something that I also wanted to touch on is, listen, I'm battling right now. I am flat out battling right now. This my physical image. Throughout the last couple years, I've put on, and this is something I don't like to talk about, but I will. I've put on some weight these last at least 2-3 years that before, when I used to work out, I would take little breaks here and there. And when I took a break a couple years ago, I said, I'll come back into it. It's not that hard. I'll get into it. Well, those couple weeks turned into a couple months, and those couple months have now turned into years. And I'm faced with looking at my body image, and for the first time in my life, not liking what I see. So guys go through it, women go through it, but I'm making changes, hopefully, that can help me progress and help me change my lifestyle. Because listen, the fact of the matter is, yes, I don't like the way my body looks right now, but I also don't like the way my body feels right now. My my feet hurt because of the extra weight that they carry. My joints hurt. My back hurts. I mean, I have to take my inhaler for something as simple as walking up steps. We went out with friends over the weekend for Adriana's birthday. And in the car, I started wheezing. I needed my inhaler because I started drinking with some friends, and like I wasn't over drinking, but I needed my inhaler. And like now I know I have asthma, but like wheezing walking up steps blows my mind. So that's a journey that I'm excited to hopefully overcome. That's a journey I'm excited to take, but an obstacle I'm ready to overcome. So I hope that you continue to follow the Gray Podcast to watch all of the interaction, all of the stories, all of the conversations that we're going to have here. Even though we're not going to be held to a strict every Thursday schedule, we are going to be held to a very strict, good content only here podcast. So, listen, I want to thank you again for all your love, for all your support. And if you're going through something in your life, if you're facing an obstacle that you believe is just too hard to handle, take it from me. You gotta face yourself in the mirror. You gotta say you have a problem. That's where you gotta start. You have to admit that there is a problem to solve the problem, because guess what? If you keep going by with your life ignoring that you have a problem, that there is a problem, or that there is an obstacle, and saying, I'll get over it. It'll be over in a moment. You are fighting an uphill battle. And maybe you'll get to the top of the hill and make it back down, but guess what? Sometimes those uphill battles have a tiny dip and then they go right back uphill. And that's not saying that addressing the problem makes it easier. Just addressing the problem puts you in the right path to handle it. Because you have to admit it. You have to face those obstacles head on when you can. So, listen, friends, again, thank you so much for all your support. Again, my name is Carlos Quer Jr., and I am the host of the Gray Podcast. And until next time, have a great weekend.